podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AEye Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our quick publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AEye Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AEye Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Welcome to AEye Scouted on Anfield Index Pro. I'm Dave Hendrick, joined as always by Mr. Karl Matchett. How are you, sir?
Of absolutely no importance.
Karl Matchett, Liverpool have shit the bed, I think it's fair to say. It's been a dreadful week. Well, week and a couple of days now at this point. Horrible at Old Trafford, appalling at home to Atalanta, and turgid at home to Crystal Palace. But we did. I rewatched the game yesterday because I had little else to be at, because we obviously weren't putting stuff out on AEye yesterday, so I just did my EPL Index stuff later on. I rewatched the game, and we were bad. Like, there's no way around it. We were bad, and they probably should have scored a couple more goals. But we easily had the chances to score 4 or 5 in that game. When you look at the Darwin chance, the Jota chance, the Mo chance, the Diaz chance first half, Virgil had a decent headed opportunity that he skewed over, and the 2 Curtis Jones chances that Cody Gakpo set up, the one where he cut it back from the right-hand side and Curtis walked onto it and missed his kick, and then the one where he put him through 1v1. Like, we did have more than enough opportunities to win the game, despite not playing well. So I think if you play the game back 5 times or 10 times over, I don't think we'd lose it again. You know, just with the game happening the same way and just our lads being a bit better in front of goal. What did you make of the game? Because you weren't on Raw at the weekend.
No, I mean, that's correct. We had the chances to win the game, no question. And we should have won the game. We had the chances to win the game just taking into account chances from the 6-yard box, let alone anything else. We should have won the game with that. But we also were ridiculously open. They could have scored 3 themselves, to be honest.
Yeah.
The overall performance wasn't good. The chance creation was fine. The missing the chances is obviously the biggest thing, but the performance as a whole wasn't good. Like, the cohesion was rubbish. The spaces in midfield, again, pretty poor, I thought. Defensively, individually, not great. The people who came back from injury, obviously you could see that there was, shall we say, about 16 kilograms of rust on each one of them. Hopefully Trent in particular has knocked off a few of those oxidized grams during the week and can start getting himself back, because obviously Conor Bradley's now going to be out for a few weeks. So it wasn't good. Like, there's just no way of it being termed anything else, despite the number of chances. So we've won games this year plenty of times when we've not played great and we've picked up the points. And I think that this one, in general terms, could or should or would normally have been another one of those, except we were so bad at missing the chances. Now, they did make a good few, like, really good blocks, really good saves, point blank, all the rest of it. But I think too many of them were still counted as misses.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Us being too open has been an issue all year long. Like, our defensive structure just hasn't been good enough. Even when we've had Ali, Ibu, Virgil, and Endo, say, as the 6, the defensive structure just hasn't been there, which is really, really strange for a Liverpool team under this manager, because we won a European Cup and a Premier League title largely based on how strong we were defensively. The attack got a lot of praise, and rightly so, but the fact of it was we were exceptional defensively, and that's what really created the bedrock for us to build off.
Get ready for family fun that's out of this world at Big Air Trampoline Park inside Fieldhouse USA at the Polaris Mall. With over 40 attractions included in the admission price, there's something for everyone. From birthday parties to toddler time, and even daily deals like Mega Jump Mondays and Wednesdays, 2-for-1 Tuesdays, and family fun packages on Thursdays and Sundays. Big Air Columbus does it all. Big Air Columbus, where the fun never ends. Visit BigAirUSA.com/Columbus for details.
Why is the defensive structure so poor right now? And why does it appear to not matter which individuals play? Because, I've seen some people say, oh, it's an individual thing, but it can't be an individual thing. Because it doesn't matter whether it's Trent, Gomez, or Bradley at right back. It doesn't matter whether it's Robbo, Costas, or Gomez at left back. It doesn't matter if it's Virgil and Ibu, or Virgil and Quansah, or Quansah and Ibu, or you throw Joel Matip in the mix. It hasn't mattered who the defenders have been. It hasn't mattered who the goalkeeper has been. It hasn't mattered what the midfield makeup has been. The defensive structure has just been poor. Poor all season. Yeah. And it's leaving Virgil and Ibu in particular far too exposed against opposition counterattacks. And it's also leaving the fullbacks in the midfield with far too much room or far too much distance to try and cover to get back.
Yeah, I don't think that there's a single answer to what's going wrong, to be perfectly honest. I think an element of it might be obviously the fact that we have more offensive-minded midfielders now. I do think that that's probably a portion of it. I don't think it's fair to say that it's because of that, because, the midfield is actually better structured than it was previously. So, you take away from one part, you give to another part. That's how reorganizing the team works, or trying to rebalance things. You can't just be better at everything and nothing suffers as a result of that. I think probably there's still an element of the inverted fullback causing a little bit of uncertainty, because we've done it now, not just from Trent, but from Gomez, from at times Bradley. We've done it from the right, we've done it from the left. All of these things don't add cohesion. I do think that there's less togetherness, let's say, between the centre-backs and who's been playing. Like previously, we could really see that Canate and Virgil played as a partnership. I don't necessarily think that that's been the case of late. Not all season long, but certainly more recent games. And as much as we acknowledge that Karl has been brilliant, not having Alisson behind is obviously going to play a part, just because he seems to be a bit more of a vocal keeper. He'll be a bit more demanding of where they are. He's probably less having to be focused on his own game. Keller has obviously come in for his first real run in the team, so he's got to be 100% on it for his own game, and not perhaps always, therefore, secondarily looking at the defence and defensive line and positioning and all the rest of it, which would be absolutely fine and fair. So I don't think that there's a single issue, but overall, I think across the board of the Premier League, as I've said before, there's a lot less great defending going on these days. And clean sheets at a premium is ultimately, I think, going to be very, very costly indeed.
Yeah, I mean, the only teams that really seem to defend well are the teams that play four centre-backs and sit two in midfield in front of them and play a risk-adverse game where they go out and they get that first goal and then they just kill teams on the counter-attack, which, would be nice to see us try and do every so often. But the other issue, apart from the defensive structure, which I do think the inverting the fullback thing is a big factor in, but also the fact that, when Bradley isn't inverting into midfield, he's playing as a right winger. He's playing way, way up. Robbo's not playing as high up, but he is still playing quite high up. And we didn't used to play our fullbacks quite as high and demand that much of them. The other factor is there's been a lot of upheaval, I suppose, in the midfield with different injuries and suspensions and whatever else. But, I mean, it's just very frustrating. It's annoying to see. But the other factor is how slow we're starting these games. And this was another example of us not being awake at the start of a game. And you can look back now over so many different games and see us come out and start really, really slowly. It's basically every game. United away in the FA Cup, we started really slowly. Brighton at home started really slowly. They scored within 2 minutes. United had scored within 10. Sheffield United should have scored within 80 seconds. United away, I know we went in front in that game, but Bruno, if he timed his run better, could have scored within 60 seconds. And then obviously Atalanta, we started really slowly in, came back into it, and then they scored. And then Palace again. Like, it just seems like we're not quite prepared for the game to begin. And that's also very, very weird because we've talked about this before. Liverpool used to come out and just decimate teams within 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Like roar out of the blocks. And now it's like they're half asleep. And that is something I don't really understand either.
Yeah, I agree. The slow starting thing really gets on my nerves because it's so hard. I know, like we want to exert control and we have a different way of playing now and all that, but you have to earn the right to control the game first, and we don't. We just expect that sooner or later, whether a team scores or whether they don't score and they give up after that first 10 minutes and sit back into shape, we'll have the ball and we'll have the territory dominance, and that's fine if it's 0-0 after 10 minutes and then you start getting the ball and stuff because you're playing from level field then, but. As you just said, there's been loads of games where we go behind in the first 10 minutes even. I can't remember it. I'm not sure if I didn't hear the rest of it or maybe I've just forgotten. But someone was saying something during the game the other day. It was the 21st time we've gone 1-0 down. I'm assuming that's not just this season, but whether it's over the last 2 years or whatever, that's still a lot of games. Obviously we've got a really good record in terms of coming back, but as the Crystal Palace match showed us, sooner or later, you can't. You have a bad day in front of goal, or the other keeper turns into Superman, or Luis Diaz gets given offside when he's not, or whatever it is. Sometimes you have to earn the right, like I said, to control matches, to play your way in matches. You can't just stroll out and 10, 15 minutes to settle in and all the rest of it. That's a chunk of the game gone already.
Yeah, no, it's 21 times this season. 21 times in 51 games this season we've conceded the first goal. That's a remarkable stat. And like you said, you're immediately putting yourself under unnecessary pressure then. But one of the things that winds me up is that we get ourselves into these situations and then the mindset seems to be, right, we have to score 2 now. Rather than just, let's just get 1 and get it back to basically 0-0 and start over again. The thing with Sunday was we didn't seem to be chasing 1 goal. We seemed to be chasing 2 goals. From the minute they went ahead, we didn't seem to manage the game well at all. And that wouldn't, you could just put that on the players having a momentary brain fart if it had happened in the second half that we went behind. But it happened early in the first half. The manager had more than enough time, manager and coaching staff, to come up with a plan to get us back into that game. He had a halftime team talk to remind the players that, look, lads, we just need 1. Get 1, and then we'll talk about getting another one. But let's just get 1. But you mentioned the control thing. So the team that probably controls games more than any other in the Premier League this season has been Arsenal. But when you watch them play, they don't move into that control mindset until they go ahead. Arsenal can be quite frenetic early in games. If you watch the first half against Villa, there was very little control in that half. They had 54% of the ball, which at home is very low for Arsenal. But Villa had some really good opportunities going the other way on them. Arsenal left themselves quite open because they were trying to go and get that opening goal because they know that once they get that opening goal, then the control can kick in. Whereas, like you said, we seem to just come out and assume we're going to control the game from minute 1. And that doesn't happen in the Premier League against anyone bar the Dross. And even the Dross are making it hard for us to do. So, we're not going out there and earning that advantage. We're not earning the upper hand in these games. If anything, we're giving the upper hand to the opposition, allowing them to get really comfortable in their shape and not testing them enough. Like, I was watching the game on Sunday, listening to the commentary, and they're obviously 1-0 up. And the commentators are lauding the defensive shape of Crystal Palace and pointing out that it's Mateta and the wing-backs who are pressing. And Eze and Elise aren't. They're just kind of dropping in. And I'm thinking, that's because we're making it far too easy for them. We're knocking the ball side to side. There's no urgency with us. There's no drive in this team right now, which is just weird because there has been for so much of the season. So maybe it's a tiredness thing. Maybe it's just a blip. Like we've seen teams have them every year. We traditionally would have had one under Jurgen in January or February was normally when we'd have our little blip under Jurgen. This year it's come a bit later. But us walking onto pitches and thinking, yeah, we're just going to go and control this game from minute one, it's just such a naive approach to take and really not in keeping with what we've come to know from this manager. So, again, you'd have to question why it's happening.
Yeah, and obviously there's not the prospect, let's say, of a long-term fix or a change in approach or anything like that, because obviously Klopp is off, which does mean that it needs to be a quick fix, which is not a stylistic fix. It's not necessarily a change in tactic or approach or anything like that. It is literally just going to be a mentality switch or a very simple alteration to how we build up or how we I'm not even sure maybe what the team talks. You can't imagine that they're terrible before the match or anything like that. But it does mean that something small and easily alterable has to change if we want to improve that. Because if you just carry on the same way as we have done, yeah, the results have been wins mostly for the most part across the course of the season. But we're not at most of the season now. We're at the point where everything you drop is costly and therefore you'll get nothing.
Yeah, exactly. You'll get nothing. And if Liverpool don't cop themselves on, they're going to get nothing more out of the rest of this season. We have 7 games left for certain, as many as 10 if we can get through this game. But we have to win this game by three clear goals just to push it to extra time. And you'd wonder, Karl, is it worth, given we're only 2 points behind City, given the fact that they could drop points, I know it's unlikely because they don't tend to, but they could go to Spurs and lose. Like, that's a real thing that could happen. How would you approach this game? Would you look at it and say, the league is out of our hands now, let's go all in on the Europa League? Or would you say, let's just pass the Europa League off, play a weakened team and go all in on trying to win our last 6 league games and come what may?
Oh, God. I said I wouldn't make any kind of judgment about that team until we played Palace and see how that goes, basically. I think at this point, what do I want most? I think I'm going to be different to you here, and I'm going to say I want a reaction. So I want a strong side. I don't think we win by 3 goals away from home, unless there's an early red card for them or Atalanta completely decimate themselves mentally or anything like that. So I wouldn't say that I want necessarily all of the strongest players to play, but I want a response. I think that there are a few players out there who have been bad, outright bad over the last couple of games. And I would like to see them playing much, much better. So I would go for quite a strong team, but it would be much more in terms of an eye on the last few league games rather than because I think it's a game that we can come back in. Sorry, a tie that we can come back in with with relative expectation. So I don't think that there's enough enough games left in the season basically to say, oh, we need to rest Virgil now, so he's okay. It'd be fine. Like, it's a handful of matches. It's not really going to make a whole lot of difference at this point. We're not going to have the midweek matches after this point because we're not going to play the semi-finals unless, as I say, magical things happen. So it's less about the rest and much more about getting people back into form for me. And maybe one or two like Cody who have been slightly on the improvement trail recently, giving him the run that he possibly now deserves versus the other players' performances.
Yeah. I mean, I thought when he came on Sunday, he was one player that was really trying to make things happen. And as I said, he did create two really good chances for Curtis. Maybe just pick the pass a bit better, Cody, and don't give it to Curtis. Give it to somebody else. Right. So Atalanta, like, we were right in what we said last week. They're having a fairly average season and they were in rotten form coming into that game. And yet they blew us off the pitch. And they played at the weekend. They played Hellas Verona. They made two changes to the team that played us. Sorry, three changes to the team that played us. Karnaseki came in goal. Toloi came in the back three. Jim City moved from right side centre-back to left side centre-back with Darun dropping out. And Holm came in at right wing-back in place of Zabacosta. Now, whether those players are being rested, they weren't in the squad, so it might just be a thing that both of them picked up knocks. They did get Said Kolasinac back on the bench, and he came off the bench in that game, so potentially he will start against us. But they went 2-0 up. Scamacca scored a worldie, obviously full of confidence from his performance at Anfield. And then Ederson scored 5 minutes later. So they're 2 up within 18 minutes. But then in the second half, we did see quite the speed wobble from them. And Lasovic got one back for Verona, and Noslin got another. Within 4 minutes of each other, they were back level 2-2 at Atalanta's home ground. Now, Atalanta have not conceded 3 goals in a home match this season. But to see them concede 2 to Verona did give me a little bit of faith that we can go there and potentially get 3. The issue is I don't believe we can keep a clean sheet. So I could see us going there and winning 3-1. And look, that might be enough for us in terms of a confidence booster, a reaction to spark form back into the league campaign. But watching that game, well, I didn't watch the full game. I watched the extended highlights, about 20 minutes of the game out of the 90. I did see a team that once they conceded looked quite rattled, looked quite unsure of themselves. And I thought Verona could have got a winner after they got their equaliser. So it did give me a little bit of hope that maybe if we can go there and start well and get an early goal, maybe they do what we did and shit the bed.
Yeah, Dave, there's zero doubt Liverpool are good enough and better enough than this Atalanta team to score 3 goals. No question. Like, if we were playing at our best level and they were at their best level, I still think we could win 4-0. The issue is that we're not. The issue is that it's been multiple games now where our finishing has been either not clinical or lacking confidence or poor decision making on the pass and where to put the finish. And it's not confined to 1 or 2 players. It's like 6 or 7 of them have missed brilliant chances. And then, like we say, at the other end of the pitch as well. Like, I still think even with the missed chances recently, Liverpool could score 4 in this game, but I bet you we'd still concede 2 at the other end as well. Like, it's not, the team just isn't as all-round cohesive or brilliant in one specific area as it needs to be to have a real genuine belief in this game. Like, I've heard people, people have talked about it. Oh, you scored 4 against Barcelona, blah, blah, blah. Fine, yeah, but this isn't the same reasoning. Like, we lost 3-0 to Barcelona, having been the better team. We lost 3-0 to Atalanta, having been lucky it wasn't double that.
Yeah. No, I fully agree. Like, do you know, I'd nearly rather go there and draw 0-0 and just keep a clean sheet. And get our players to remember what that is and what that's like. Even go there and win 1-0. Go there, park the bus, and try and hit them on the counter. And just be a little bit resolute and not the most open team that I've ever seen us have since the Roy Evans era. Like, that's what it reminds me of right now. It reminds me of the Roy Evans era. With better players, obviously, but that same kind of mindset of, fuck it, sure, we'll just go and we'll outscore them. Like, we won't worry about the defending side too much. The lads will keep us in it. And all we need to do is score. We need to score 3 because they're going to score 2. And that seems to be the mindset that we have right now.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that there's a big part of what we're talking about here is the mindset. Like, from the start of the game, the ability to come back, what we need to do to come back, all of that is all mentality stuff for me. It's not really, shape or tactical or anything like that. And that's where really I would like to see improvement. Like, yeah, we'll need to be resolute, but we can't really park the bus because Atalanta will just pass the ball about between their centre-backs, They've absolutely zero need to come onto us in this game. Like, entertain the fans a little bit, fine, but beyond that, they just want to win the trophy at this point. And we have no option in this game other than to try and press, other than to try and have a bit more of a tight-knit group in midfield. So, short of switching up the system, I don't really see what can change in this.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree. I expect that they'll line up with something similar to what they had at Anfield. I think Kolasinac will come in on the left side of the back three with Jim City and Hine, given I can't think of the fella's name that's injured. Centre back. That's terrible. Why can't
Scalvini?
Scalvini, that's exactly him.
I'm sitting here saying it 3 times without realising I'm on mute.
There you go then. I think the midfield will be, if Zabacosta's fit, I think he'll start with Paslick and Ederson, or Darun and Ederson potentially if Darun is good to go. On Ederson, I thought he was exceptional at Anfield, Karl. I thought in a team of good performances from them, he was the one that really stood out to me as being just a notch above, as in I could see us bringing him in, putting him into our midfield, and him immediately looking very much at home and raising the level. Like, every time we tried to attack, he just seemed to appear, whether it was down the right, down the left, through the middle. He just seemed like he was, it was like there was 2 or 3 of them on the pitch. What did you make of his performance? And is he someone you'd be looking at for us this summer? Regardless of who the manager is, we're going to need an upgrade in that defensive midfield spot. Would he be someone that would be on your list?
Yeah, I mean, certainly as a consideration, I would really, really like to see someone this summer who can play in a 2 or a 3. Who can be that, like, the defensive destroyer, basically, in a 2-man midfield. That's what I'd really like to see come in. I do think we've lost a little bit of... No, I don't. I think over the last 3-4 years, we've lost a huge amount of defensive aggression in midfield. Like, everybody likes the more offensive-minded nature of the midfield this year, and that's really good. But I do wish we had a little bit more snarl back. So somebody who can bring a bit of that would be good on the list of considerations for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we lost Ginny. Not that he had snarl, but his athleticism, his intelligence, his positional sense was massive for us defensively. And him being there allowed Fabinho to go and be aggressive and be a bit more of a destroyer and play a little bit higher up if he needed to and just go and take the ball off the opposition. We don't have anyone that does that now, nor do we have anyone that really facilitates the ability. I think Alexis could do it with the right partner. He could facilitate someone to go and be a bit of a destroyer, which is why I'd look at someone like an Ederson or an Alan Varela and think, well, if you had Alexis just sitting in, the other one could go and win the ball back. Even a João Palhinha, sitting with Alexis in next to him and give him free rein to go and just boot people up in the air and take the ball off them. We then obviously had the decline of Fabinho about 2/3 of the way through the 21-22 season. And obviously the former club captain, currently flopping in the Eredivisie, having flopped in the Saudi Pro League, he just gave up on defending a number of years ago and decided it wasn't for him and just left the rest to take care of it. And that was a big factor as well in our defence weakening, is that we only had two midfielders who were interested in doing stuff off the ball. I do also think part of it is I feel like Trent was never a great defender, but was never a bad defender. Like, he was about average. He could have really good games. He'd have some poor games. But he did his defensive work for the most part. And I feel like in the last couple of years, he also sort of dropped off. Now, I think part of that is so much more was been asked of him on the ball that it was just very hard for him to do both at a high level. Obviously, we've seen a decline in Robbo. Ibu's had injury issues. Virgil missed a year through injury, came back, was great, and then last season looked entirely disinterested. This season, he's been a lot better. I think he's been great this year. But he hasn't had a settled group around him, which is a factor. So I do feel like it's personnel, mindset, tactical change, obviously, with far more of the Linder's influence in the team. You can see this team being much more like the team he put together at NEC when he was there as manager briefly, and playing that way as opposed to playing like a more traditional Jurgen Klopp team. There's less aggression in our press as well. I think when you saw the decline of Sadio, the decline of Bobby, and then obviously both of them leaving, that also takes away from that. Darwin's aggressive in how he presses. Dom's aggressive in how he presses. But Diaz isn't. And that's kind of a factor as well, is that we're not as snappy. We don't have that needle that we had in our press beforehand. Like, we don't have someone like Sadio who will get under the opposition's skin, and without even going near them, he's already in their head. Like, he's just rattled them a little bit. And then when they do get the ball, they start to make mistakes, and Sadio would just snap all over them and force them into another error. So, yeah, I mean, that's definitely part of it. But I don't know, like, we just need to get ourselves back this summer to a more rudimentary base of, if you don't concede, you only need to score one goal, and then you've won the game. And you don't need your forward players to score 2 and 3 and 4 every game. And if they have a bad game, worst case scenario is you end up with a 0-0 draw. Like, that to me is just the basic principle. If you're going to try and win the title, is it has to start at the back. It has to start at the back. City, not as good this year, but still a strong defensive team. But they don't concede 2 and 3. If they concede a goal, it generally tends to be when they're already a couple ahead. The same with Arsenal, as we've seen this year. They tend to concede goals when they're 2-0 up. It's rare enough that they go behind. We used to be like that, and that's what whoever the next manager is, that has to be something he instills, is that if we're going to win the biggest prizes, it has to start at the back, and it flows from there.
Yeah, I think that's always the important starting point, whether it's the build-up play, whether it's the overall mentality, whether you play as a counter-attacking team or you want to dominate, whatever. It always should really start and build from the back. And to be fair, we did for a long time. But obviously later on, when you're trying to make small adjustments to make sure you win every single game, like I said before, you give up a little bit somewhere else when you're trying to add more to the attack or the build-up, whichever it is.
For sure. So, looking at the Liverpool team for Thursday night's game, you said you wouldn't go full strength, but you would go strong. So, who's in goal?
Kelleher, I think he deserves to see out whatever's left of the Europa League.
Okay. Back four then, You said you'd start Virgil. I would as well. Are you starting Gerald Quansah or Ibu next to him?
Kwanzaa. Ibu's been pretty poor for the last couple of games.
Agreed. Fullback then becomes interesting. Do you go Trent or Gomez at right back? Gomez had an absolute howler against Atalanta. Probably his worst performance of the, actually, no, definitely his worst performance of the year. Would you start him and bring Trent on, or would you just start Trent?
I'd be starting Trent, get him some minutes, get him some, I don't know how much rhythm he'll get, but certainly some touches of the ball under pressure as much as possible, get that touch back, because that's what we'll need in the league for sure.
Hello there. Have you ever found yourself getting ready to watch the Liverpool match? You've got your mates round, you've got your drinks, you've got your snacks, you're all set to go. It's going to be a good day. And then you find out, oh, the game's not actually being broadcast in your region. There's the heartbreak, there's rage, there's despair, there's fury. You're upset. You're looking for a solution. Well, we've teamed up with NordVPN to bring you a game-changing solution. That's right. With NordVPN, you can switch your virtual location to a country where the game's on live. It's like having a global ticket to sports, TV shows, and movies from all around the world. And here's the best part. If you go to nordvpn.com/Anfield Index, you'll score the best discount on your NordVPN plan. Plus, our link gives you 4 extra months free on the 2-year plan. And that's what we call a winning streak. And if you're sitting there and you're thinking, what if it's not for me? What if I don't like it? What if I'm not getting the use of it? Don't worry about it. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so it's totally risk-free. I've been using NordVPN to catch all the Liverpool matches and TV shows that I'd normally miss out on. It's totally transformed both my weekends and my TV watching. And not only that, not only does it give me access to stuff from all around the world with the click of a button, it keeps all my data safe. It means that the miscreants, the ne'er-do-wells, what my grandmother would have called scallywags, who lurk on the internet to try and steal your information, can't get to your information. NordVPN keeps it safe for you. So don't let geo-restrictions bench you this season. Visit nordvpn.com/Anfield Index and make sure that you're in the game, no matter when or where it's being played. Remember, it's not just sports, it's your all-access pass to binge-worthy TV shows and blockbuster movies from all around the globe. NordVPN literally unlocks the world for you and keeps you safe from the world. So don't miss out. Head over to nordvpn.com/Anfield Index and let the fun and games begin. And then at left back, Costas. Robertson, yeah. Costas did not have a good game in the first leg. And Robbo...
Robbo's been our best player over the last sort of 2-3 matches.
Yeah, well, he was certainly the only player who started against Palace, who came out of it with any credit. Like, he was the only player that really looked like his aggression level, his desire, that snap to the ball. He was the only one that looked like it hadn't just gone away. So Trent, Quansah, Virgil and Robbo in front of Kelleher. Then in midfield, I mean, for me, Endo needs to sit down now for a couple of games. I don't think he's fit, Karl. Like, he missed the Sheffield United game. He's had a couple of bangs and bruises and bumps and whatever else. He just doesn't look fully fit, and he looks like a guy that has played one game too many at the moment. So I'd be sitting him, but what would you do with the midfield?
Yeah, I'm fine. I think Endo's one that I would sit down. I think Szoboszlai's obviously come off the bench in the last couple of games. I think I'll probably bring him back in.
So you go Savo, Alexis and Curtis?
I want to start Harvey Elliott, to be honest.
Could I make the case to you to start Harvey with Mo as the 9 and Gakpo as the left-sided player in the front three? I know it doesn't have great pace, but I kind of feel like you can't play Harvey and Sabo in the same midfield.
Mm.
And I don't think we press well without Dominic in that midfield.
That's fine. I was going to start Jota because he's had a couple off the bench, but
Yeah.
maybe we can look at him as a 45-minute sub this time.
See, the other thing with Harvey is he did start the first leg. Oh, he did hit the bar. He was very unlucky. But he doesn't seem to have as anywhere near the impact when he starts as when he comes on against a tired team. Like against Palace, he comes on and they're blowing out of their arses, and he did have an impact on the game. And I think when you look at all his best performances this season in the league, they've been off the bench where he does come on and change the game for us. But he started well against some poor teams, but not really against anybody good. But maybe you just maybe you do just throw caution to the wind and go Szoboszlai, McAllister, and Harvey, because what does it matter? If you lose 3-0, so be it. You might as well have a go. So maybe you just start both of them.
Maybe you could, or maybe you do make that slight concession that we've been looking for recently. You've spoken about having Szoboszlai playing from the left, for example, and maybe you do that and it's sort of flips between the 4-4-2 and 4-3-3 in that case, because we've been going 4-4-2 basically late on in matches when we're chasing score lines, obviously, for the last couple of weeks. So maybe we start that way, and it's Harvey, Alexis, Jones, Szoboszlai, and obviously, nominally speaking, Szoboszlai's in the front three on the left, and then you've got
Gakpo as the 9.
Yeah,
would you Gakpo because I think he's earned it with his performance the weekend.
Yeah.
So if you start Gakpo as the 9, but as you're saying, you're kind of flexing between a 4-4-2 where Harvey shifts wide right and Dom shifts wide left.
Yeah.
And Curtis and Alexis form a double pivot. So who do you start right wing then?
Yeah,
because
Salah.
You start Mo.
Yeah. I was going to start Jota centre forward. I was going to start Jota centre forward in a 3, but I think on balance, maybe he's up to 45 minutes. Let's not push it too much. We'll see how it's going at half time and then where we want to put him, maybe.
Yeah, because it was a knee, wasn't so? You don't want to just overload that injury because he does have such a history of injury since he joined us. But yeah, I mean, we might as well just have a quick Mo debate right now. What would you do with Mo this summer, Karl?
What's on offer?
There is an offer sitting on the table from Saudi Arabia, which is probably, I would guess, around the 100 million mark for a 32-year-old player with a year left in his contract. The alternative is you offer him a new deal. You have probably 2 options there. You could maybe do a 1-year extension with the agreement that he goes next summer. Or you could do a new 3-year contract, which replaces the year left with 3 new years. In all likelihood, he's going to want a bit more money, which again, he's 32. He was outrageously good prior to going away to the AFCON. That must be said.
Yeah.
But he has been dreadful since coming back from the injury. I know he's gotten some goals, I know he's gotten some assists, but he has been dreadful.
Yep.
And I say that I'm talking about based on his standard, and it's important that people realise that when I say Mo's been awful, I mean compared to Mo. I don't mean compared to bog standard right winger in the Premier League. When we look at Mo and Virgil and Ali, these all-timer players, we can only compare them with themselves and past versions of themselves. So when people said Virgil was shit last year, yeah, compared to previous versions of Virgil, compared to the rest of the league, he was probably still a top 6 or 7 centre-back in the league. It was just a massive drop-off from where he'd been. It's the same with Mo. He's not dreadful by Premier League standards. He's playing dreadfully by Mohamed Salah standards. That's the important context to put it in.
Yeah, I agree. I think if it's 100 on the table, £100 million, I'm taking that. And it's not really to do with Salah's age, but the fact that we have such a big rebuild to do now. Not a rebuild, but a restructuring in terms of obviously a new coach, quite possibly new formation, and so on and so forth. There will be required money for that, and we obviously don't have oodles of money a lot of the time. So I would take that partly for the cash, partly for the ability for the manager to do things his own way a little bit more, but also partly because not that it's a problem when you have him and you're able to use him perfectly, but Salah is obviously one of those players who kind of demands you play a way where he fits well because he's so good, if you know what I mean. And if it doesn't quite mesh where whichever new manager comes in and where they want him to play and all the rest of it, his value will very, very, very quickly decrease a lot because he'll go from the elite kind of numbers that nobody can match to, kind of run-of-the-mill ones.
Yeah, I do think that's fair. And I think that's also the view that Michael Edwards will take, because he won't be sentimental about it, and he's going to take more of a, the 10,000-foot view where he looks at the bigger picture and looks at the next 4 to 5 years of what this club is going to be. And he'll obviously know, or I'd assume he knows who the new manager is going to be, because I do think it's a lot more advanced than what we're being told. I'd imagine the preferred target being in the middle of a title race is a factor in nothing coming out and being leaked and certain people saying, oh, it's maybe not him, it could be somebody else. So, yeah, I do think he's going to look at it that way. And I don't think Mo will be the only one. I do think Andy Robertson probably goes this summer. He's got a year left on his deal. He is soon to turn 30. And I don't think they're going to look to give him a new contract. So I think they'll look to move him this summer too. And again, that's not a bad thing. Like, Robbo's been an incredible servant. Mo's been one of the best players we've ever had. But we need to move on as a club. We need to continue to move forward. The most important thing is the future of the club, not the individuals. And I do wonder, would Amorim, if it's Amorim, like, having watched so much of his team over the last few years, I think he's going to want a number 9 to replace Mo. Because I don't think he's playing Darwin as the 9. I think he's playing Darwin as the left-sided one in the Paulinho role. So I think he's going to want a 9. So that's probably where that money goes then. And to get a 9 in this market that's going to come in and do what we need him to do, which is to score 20 a season, it's going to cost a lot of money. And the best way to fund that is going to be to move Mo on.
I think one additional important thing when it comes to selling players is that it's not something that we've done with the first teamers while Jurgen's been here, of course, because he's been happy to keep them and get the value off them as a player, as a person, and, basically let them leave for free at the end of things when there's no new deal agreed. I don't think at the minute, now that it's not going to be the Jurgen environment, that we can afford to do that.
No. Look, we could never afford to do it anyway. Like, it has hurt us badly. Losing Emre Can on a free, that was 25, 30, 40 million that walked out the door. Losing Ginny Wijnaldum on a free, that was 25 million that we could have put into the kitty that could have helped us get a replacement. Divock leaving on a free when really and truly he should have been sold in the summer of 2019 because his value was never going to be higher than it was coming off that European Cup run. But Jurgen's sentimentality and loyalty to players and the Rinus Michels mindset that Jurgen subscribes to, where continuity and this idea of kumbaya and not having people disruptive in the group, which is one of the reasons he hung on to the captain for so long or kept the captain in the team for so long, was worth more than, upending things and bringing in new players. I don't think Edwards is going to subscribe to any of that. And I don't think Edwards is going to allow for players to run down their contracts. I really don't. I think he's going to be far more forceful. I think it's one of the things that fractured the relationship between him and Klopp, that and the contracts for players that didn't deserve them. Like, Bobby left on a free. Naby left on a free, Ox left on a free. That's a lot of money that we spent on those players and they walked out the door for nothing. Where we could have got 15 million for Ox the previous summer and Jurgen played him in a pre-season game when he wasn't fully fit and he got injured and missed 4 months and that killed his value. We could have gotten rid of Naby the previous summer. There were offers for Naby from Marseille and from Dortmund. They weren't big offers, but they were offers. There were money coming in the door that would have been more valuable than him sat in the the trainer's room, see game after game, getting physio treatment. Like, I just think we need to take a different approach moving forward with how we manage the players. I know some people don't like to hear this, but when you're a football club, you're a business. And when you're a business, your assets are commodities. And players are your assets. They are commodities. They are to be bought and sold. That's how this game works. That's how the industry works. And sometimes you need to have a less personal relationship with them so that you can make those hard decisions. And unfortunately for Jurgen, it's just something that he's not good with. You know, it's a great human trait, but as a manager, it has held him back at times. Anyway, we've gone as long as we can go without putting this out for free. So we want to put this out for free for the entirety. Karl, matches your prediction for this game.
16-3 to Liverpool.
Right.
I don't know, Dave. This could be a 4-0 either way. It's still so much of it depends on how much we turn up. I'll go for 2-1 to us, but really I don't have any massive reason to think we will win.
I'm going to go 2-2. I'm going to go 2-2. I like you. I just don't know that we can win the game because right now we don't look like we can win any game.
Can we also just point out that you were correct with your weekend prediction, and therefore everything about this season has been your fault?
I was correct. Like, lads, I know 1 or 2 people at the club listen to these, but like, you don't need to take it all so seriously and to heart. Just because I say win 1, we're going to lose 1-0, you don't need to go and do it. When I say we're going to win 4-1, you don't fucking do it. Right, let's leave it there then. Have you anything to plug before we go? You do have an excellent piece on Morgan Gibbs-White up on FootMob that I would recommend people go and find. What else do you have?
Thank you very much. Yes, on the same place, there will be one on Tammy Abraham's return from Roma. He's been out for a whole year, so he's back now. So looking at him and them next season, basically. And there will also be something on... Wow, I would like to remember what I'm writing on today. I've completely forgotten. Let's have a very, very quick look. Oh, Matisse Tell ahead of the Arsenal-Bayern Munich game.
There we go.
Matisse Tell is going to be a big thing, I think. There's also another piece coming out soon, but I want to discuss the player I'm writing on this podcast before I write about it. So, that.
Cool. Right, there we go. We will see you on Friday to preview Fulham. I will see you Thursday night. Are you on the Europa League game as well?
I fucking am.
Oh, lovely. So both of us will be back full of joy with Trev on Thursday. So until then, take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.
Sports Social Podcast Network.